All right, it's TSG. We are here. We are back. I'm coming in hot. I'm going to get right down. I want to get down to some of the nitty gritty because we are into Murder Month here, as Greg dubbed it in the last episode, which I think was, kind of one of those canonical things, if we can call ourselves canon. I think that is officially TSG canon, Murder Month.
Until
Definitely.
Disney buys us.
That's good. Hey, which, by the way, Disney, I'm just saying every group of creative artists has a price, and Disney, I've been giving you money for all of my life, so we're here, we're listening to it. I got some thoughts here, and it does relate to Murder Month and Netflix, but so I want to get right to the introductions. You heard the Three of Clubs there. Three of Clubs. RaShaun, how you doing today?
What do you do? How do you do? I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm back with my gents. We are back in the steam tunnels and just happy to be here, man. Happy to be alive. It's all good. It's always good to be alive during Murder Month. We're in my season. We're in Halloween season. Right? I hit October 1st, like a lot of people hit the Christmas season. I got the inflatables out on the lawn, the big spider, the whole 9 yards. Like, it's out there.
Not a word of exaggeration in that, listeners.
Not one. Matter of fact, we wish there was a little bit of exaggeration in there, but hey, nothing says happy to be alive like fetishizing the entertainment industry centered around the torture and killing of people. So
right. Our inevitable fear, our fear of our own inevitable demise, right?
Viva TSG.
Absolutely. So I'm here and I'm in it. Sounds like you are back with us and happy to be here. As you so succinctly put, us talking about horror movies is like an Olympic swimmer swimming around the lazy river, right? Just gonna lap everybody and have a good time with it. So
we're not swimming. No, we're on a raft. Yeah, we're even more. we're even more in the low energy phase of that. I was just pointing out that the Olympic swimmer could do anything he or they wanted in the lazy river, but they're utilizing the raft. They're just that much better at it.
Yeah,
or probably not. It doesn't matter. They're just not swimming.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point. But with that, I also want to take it over to the Star Child. Greg, how you doing today?
Just happy to be here with you fellas on the Day of Demons and dive into this topic.
Oh, all right. Well, I had one of those moments sitting around talking, sitting around. I was watching the Netflix. Okay, I'm gonna admit to that. We were back on the Netflix. I bounced between Netflix, Disney Plus, and HBO, depending on what's on, what's happening, what's got to happen. And I'm watching Dahlmer. Okay, I'm in it. I had to watch it. I had to go to it. And I think we have a mission statement here at TSG. I think our mission statement is we are here to keep pop culture real. Like, we are here to be saying, does this represent us? Is this really hitting the mark? Is this really what happened? And especially in one of these, based on a true story, which in the case of Jeffry Dahlmer, and fits in well with the whole Halloween scary stuff, because that shit was pretty scary. I mean, it was out there. Is this really, do I think this is true to life? So mild spoilers here. This is just from the first episode, but if you really don't want to hear this, fast forward ahead. I'm giving you that warning now. I'm going to say, maybe 2 more lines before I launch into it. But here we are. First episode, Jeffry Dahmer's dad gets the call, right? You got to come down to the station, Mr. Dahmer, right? They sit him down and they talk to him. Sit him down.
I'm sorry, but that is a hell of a call.
That's a hell of a call. No, I mean, you got to put this in there. I understand their moment here.
Don't go down to the station, Mr. Dahmer.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't he? They called him like he broke a fucking window.
They called down. But here's the thing. Here's what I saw, and I believe
like
all
he
this.
Shoplifted his Snickers.
This I 100% believe the conversation went this way. All right, I 100% believe the conversation went this way because they say, "Mr. Dahmer, are you aware your son's a homosexual?" Right. Start off with that.
You think they started with that?
That's what they start with in the scene. Okay, that's what they start with in the scene. And here's my point. Then, of course, they got to go into, well, Mr. Dahmer, he had a human head in the refrigerator. He had 3 human hearts in the freezer. There were multiple torsos in the vat of acid, right? Just all of the
My son's a hoarder. What do you want?
All of the litany of shit. But the thing was, I'm watching it, and maybe it's my dark sense of humor or whatever, but it's 1991, mind you. This guy is white, middle class from Wisconsin. Okay. I'm pretty sure there was a pause in the conversation, and he looked straight at those cops and said, "Are you sure he's gay?" I'm really willing to bet, if we're going to be real here about what was being said in the room at that time, I guarantee you that question was asked. Okay. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
No, I hate to say it, man. I'm willing to bet the conversation probably steered towards, hey, look, man, I'm not saying my son couldn't do it, but most of these bodies, are you sure you got the right guy? Because right? he was probably more curious about who his son was into heritage wise than who his son was into.
I mean, just what I mean. Like, not only your son is gay.
Yes.
He's into black dudes. Stop. He's a serial killer.
Okay.
By the way.
But in the keeping it real, if that were happening today, he would ask, did any of the black guys play the flute? Right? That would be the question of the day. Like, wait,
I feel like you're sharing a little bit more about your thoughts.
Just was that going on there? Was because, are we sure here? Are we 100% sure all this was happening?
Well, it's funny you're talking about intersection of life and how things work. And I'm not even sure how this worked out, because literally right before we got on to record today's episode, I watched a quick little video of this singer-songwriter, Life Jennings, who had spent time, and funny enough, spent time in prison in a jail block with Dahmer. And then literally the video was talking about how Dahmer, and this is probably going to lead to a lot more discovery of who Jeffry Dahlmer really was. And I can get a little out there and some thought process, like maybe he was eating black people because he really wanted to be a black person. Because Dahmer once he found out that Life Jennings could sing, requested that he sing New Edition for him. And according to Life Jennings, Dahmer fucking loved it. It was like he was at a concert. He ate that shit up. So, I mean, if we want to get out there. But the second point, and this is probably the most important point. So you said you were channel flipping between HBO Max and Netflix. What kind of monster are you? Like,
I mean, it always is like,
that is the burying the lead.
Fuck.
It's what's on like that I need to want to watch. Wife and I are working our way through the Rings of Power. So you get Amazon on Friday. We got that type of thing. Lots of excitement
like
here
your
at the
channel flipping, like 5 minutes here,
Oh
5
my
minutes
God.
here, 5 minutes
Like,
here.
say you're streaming rich without saying you're streaming rich.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I didn't
For our
tell
listeners, Josh had his pinky up when he said all those subscriptions.
When I go from Disney Plus to Netflix, I occasionally stop at Amazon Prime.
Occasionally see what the Amazon has. I didn't tell you whose passwords I was using. Let's just be fair. And I'm still not going to tell you whose passwords I'm going to use. All right. That's just, that's
For
between
everyone who
me.
has a password, you might want to change it now.
That's between me and the people who kept their passwords that simple. And God,
man.
okay?
Hey.
That's all there is.
You must maintain the covenant of the password. If somebody lets you into their password tribe, you got to respect that shit.
No.
And these days, they're literally giving you money.
And I share my and for those people will share that. You know what I'm saying? We will.
And this ain't the early 90s, man. Hackers come in all shapes and sizes and levels. You don't have to be some weird punk spiky haired kid with headphones around your neck, even though you have it not plugged into anything or listen to any music, and for some reason have rollerblades, even though you spend most of your time inside and talking weird lingo.
I feel like RaShaun knows this person.
I know the movie.
All right.
I know the movie Hackers. You don't have to do that, to be a hacker. You can start in small levels, and password stealing is, I guess, a respectable level. That's a weird phrase.
Just saying, go up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do that, you're golden. Okay. You just go 1 through 4. any schmuck's gonna figure it out. Okay, you add that 5 in there, you got an extra layer of security.
Holy
All right.
Spaceballs.
I'm saying I'm pretty impressed with us. You know, we went from Jeffrey Dahmer's dad in the interview room to Netflix passwords. God damn, we are the only show out. I'm telling you, you find me another podcast that can do this, and well, I'll be impressed. I'm gonna ask.
How fucked up would we be if someone just like literally texts us like 3 different podcasts right now? Like, son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch. Well, we'd be happy. I'd be happy because I know
you find me one more.
You find me one more. God damn it.
Top 10 right here.
We're gonna go on their podcast and steal the rest of their shit.
That's it. That's what we do. That's how we.
We're just gonna rob them motherfuckers.
But when it comes to stealing shit, we are here to talk about that. We're here to talk about those who steal, those who admire, those who make it their own, really take it through. I'm gonna, you thought I was getting streaming rich. You thought that pinky was up in the air. I'm gonna really go hoity to the toity on your ass right about now, because we're gonna talk about auteur theory. Ooh. Kind of throwing out a semi-French word there, Greg, how's my French sound? I know, I know it's more Creole in your house, but
we'll take it.
We'll take it. All right. I know it's more Creole in your house, but just enough there. Auteur theory, the idea of a director putting such an individual stamp upon his or her or their work. We'll get all the pronouns in there just to piss people off. I mean, the only thing that pisses people off more than flute playing nowadays is pronouns. That they get that individual work, that it makes it their own, that makes the film, this collaborative process, into something of that person's own, that we can point to, that we know is their movie. And I was thinking about this because, well, I wanted to go. I'm gonna start us off today, because I was thinking about my man John Carpenter, who is John Carpenter. Really, I mean. Carpenter. The horrors, auteur. The only one you could really point to, I would say, that would really supersede him in this idea would be Hitchcock, because much like that, they both got their names in the head title, right? Alfred Hitchcock's whatever, Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Torn Curtain. You could just go on and on all day. Little film he did near the end there, Hitchcock, that I really liked. But John Carpenter, somehow in this, and what's impressive is he managed to talk the gentleman who paid, I believe it was $300,000 to get the original Halloween made. For whatever reason, I guess it was sort of like a bet. It was like, if you can make this film for $300,000, I'll put your name on the front of it. So that's how it became John Carpenter's Halloween, which really John was his second project. His first project was a sci-fi comedy called Dark Star, which is it's a college project, but when those things could still actually get theatrical play, had a lot of things that you kind of looked forward to. Definitely took a lot from Star Wars and a lot of the other sci-fi films of the day. But again, here's where that idea gets interesting, right? When you have a director, artists are artists. We all influence each other. I think Greg can back up on that, right? You spend a lot of time, you look at other artists, you work on your own art, you take those influence, right? People ask what your influences are.
Being obsessed with originality is overrated.
Yes. So, here you have, again, an art form, something here where you're taking it from other people without a doubt. And you got those amalgamations, but yet you remash it up, and somehow in there's that unique thread that is your own. So Carpenter, he's, I'm really starting his career in the capital letters with Halloween, right? Especially for our purposes here today in horror. He invents the slasher genre. So call back to last week's episode, right? That idea of that unstoppable, as Michael Myers was originally referred to in the script as the Shape. Right. It wasn't, it was this inhuman kind of feel. They get the famous William Shatner mask that they modify, and William Shatner, I guess, is pissed about now. But what are you gonna do, right?
Own it, Bill.
Own it, Bill.
He's mad about it now, or he was mad about it back in like the early 80s?
I mean, he's in his 90s. He's kind of at, he's Canadian grandpa shouting, "Get off my lawn." That's where we're at with Bill. So it happens. But in that, in this film, John sets up I'm talking about it like but he sets up there's a certain style, there's a certain bit that he starts to really adapt to. A lot of it is less is more. And he's taking that from Hitchcock, right? In the original Halloween, you don't actually see a lot of blood. Everybody thinks about, the slasher movie being bloody and gory. Most of it, again, much like Psycho, which I talked about last week, was implied, right? You don't actually see the knife hit the person. You just know that, of course, Michael Myers is walking along and he's going to kill somebody. He's got a knife and yada, yada. You get it. But he builds this suspense. He builds his suspense. He builds tension. A lot of things that become tropes later on, right? The safety to danger, back and forth moving. Even in there's a big shot where they turned on a light just to show the killer, right? They show Michael in all of a sudden out of this stark darkness, almost a film noir technique, right? Mm-hmm. So here you have a guy, he's trying to kind of pioneer something new, yet a little cheap, yet a little cheesy. It's all done on shoestring budget. Everybody having a great time, almost a summer camp like vibe to it. And lo and behold, it ends up making him famous, right? It ends up getting more and more theatrical run, bringing in more money, and he gets a chance to make more films. And this is where I think he comes into his own, and he starts to get a chance he continues to work in horror, but he gets a chance to change it, push it, and perfect it. And what he does, there's a couple of things he does that you will see consistently throughout his film. One being the siege, right? He loves the siege mentality. He loves that story. He told it several different times. Starts in a little movie called Assault on Precinct 13. A little classic in there. Definitely worth watching. They remade it. Don't see the remake. I mean, it had Lawrence Fishburne, so all right,
Don't see the remake.
But don't see the remake. There was just there just was no real point. The idea of that original this original of island of this, it's a police station that's being closed down, and it's just the last couple of people there, and a street gang is outside, all the great tropes there. But he starts with the kind of siege idea, and what do people do during this idea of the siege, which can stand in for a lot of different things, stands in for a lot of different of our fears that are certainly presented and represented to us. But he taps into that idea, this idea of we are in here, they are out there. What is it we're afraid of? What's going on? What's going to happen to us? Which we all got a nice little taste of a couple of years ago. That was fun. And we found out that, people don't want to wear masks. We really found that out apparently. And don't necessarily want to protect themselves against even the baseline diseases. But
my asthma has asthma.
But he starts to really get this dichotomy going, right? This inside, outside. What is that? What happens when those two really come together, and how can I exploit the tension? And then I think it really comes to the culmination, which I think is his finest film. And I think we've talked about it before, but we'll agree with it, which is The Thing. The Thing, a critical, I think it was critically well received, a box office flop. So I always like to point that out, that, this movie was not well received at the box office at the time, but thank God for VHS, right? The first thing that gave us that ability and that power to watch these things over and over again. And what is, here he perfects his storytelling. He's got the same siege mentality, right? It's the siege. It's us versus them. It's the outside versus the inside. But here's the kicker. The outside is on the inside, and you can't tell who's what and what's going on. Kind of back to what we sort of went through a little bit, just a taste of in 2020, that idea of this creature that can assume any form, right? And is moving along and is occupying the various people for those of you who haven't seen it, go rent it right now. Definitely worth the rental or stream, or what is it you kids do nowadays? There we go.
I would just point out, maybe wait until it's winter and there's snow on the ground for heightened effect.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good one. That's, this is a good Christmas movie too. You're absolutely right. This and Die Hard. You can do a double feature of this and Die Hard.
Unnecessary.
Yeah. That, and as well, he perfects that in the storytelling, and then he's using practical effects to just masterful. When it comes to creature effects, you're never going to see anything like this again, right? Nowadays, it's all CGI and all of that, but this has things that the likes of which you have not seen before if you haven't laid eyes on this movie, right? Just all of the amount of work that goes into it. And because I know, and I'm shout out to my man Brian Walsh, who works in the visual effects industry. I just can look at all of you right here. And I would be interested to if I could ever get him on the show, if he could guesstimate the tubes of KY jelly that were used in the making of that film, because you've got that kind of goopy, all these goopy, wet looking creatures and all that. And I got to tell you, I know for a fact that he sent many years ago his then girlfriend out one time when they were working on a project to get like 80 tubes of KY jelly, which I still just want to imagine the checkout, right? And whatever latex they needed. It's like gonna be a hell of a weekend.
It was in California.
It was California, so they probably didn't even notice.
They're fine. They're fine.
Yeah,
depends on what town you're in. California is way more conservative than people think.
It wasn't Orange
They're
County.
fine.
They're not OC, but really, like I say, that's what to me cements him as the auteur. There's more films after that. There's some films before that, other films that make different social statements, but really watching his auteur style, that idea, the us versus them, the suspense, the use of imagination, and then combined with at times, when he shows you, it's really in your face, right? Like the thing in and of itself really typifies so much. My favorite scene though still has to be Kurt Russell holding a flamethrower, looking at this alien creature. I'm trying to give away too much for the kids who haven't seen it, but he just looks at it and says, "You gotta be fucking kidding me!" What a I don't know if it was. I've always wondered if that line was improvised or where it came from. But what a beautiful piece of cinema right there. That just rang so true, right? So when it comes to the horror auteurs, that's where I really wanted to get our start there. Old JC, that I just, he hasn't made, he made one a couple of years ago that was kind of meh, unfortunately. I think in some ways, maybe we can retread on our own art. I'll give you that. But man, those early films, they had such an impact on my little VHS childhood. Even taking it all the way up, I'll even see Ghosts of Mars, right? You get Ice Cube, same thing.
Oh, wow.
Ooh. Come
Ladies
on,
and
man.
Gentlemen, we do not share lists, but he just stepped all in my yard.
Oh, damn it. Oh, man.
I will point out that for The Thing, it could have been improvised that moment for a lot of reasons. One, part of Kurt Russell's awesome charm that made it so awesome throughout his reign in the 80s. If you watch any of his movies, is he brought a little extra to the script no matter what. So you really don't know. It could have been, but part of the reason why I think it really could have been, it might have probably been improvised, is because one of the best things about that movie is how they made the movie, leading into literally the start of the movie, where I'm not going to give anything away, but there's a group of people speaking a language that the main characters do not understand. Well, they weren't told that those actors were going to be speaking a different language. So the genuine fear and confusion on people's face, that was created because they literally set the situation up for smart filmmaking to create. It wasn't enough to have acting. They create. Now, it wasn't over the top like maybe a Kubrick. Yeah, no, maybe not. But it was still something where smart filmmakers, regardless of the genre they're in, will create emotions, and The Thing typified that. And then, yeah, Kurt Russell. I mean, sometimes I look back and I'm like, do I love that movie because that movie kicked ass? Or do I love that movie because I am literally a disciple of Warren J. Smith and A.J. Smith, my father and brother respectively, and they were Kurt Russell giant fans. So I grew up literally with Kurt Russell being like a distant uncle. They're like, Kurt's on the TV, like, hell yeah, Overboard, fuck yeah, let's go. Let's skip over the fact that this is only about some woman who's kind of actually raping someone. Let's just get past that. Let's go into Kurt Russell. Oh, he's in Chinatown, totally bad material that he can totally fuck up at any given moment, but he's gonna pull it off because it's fucking Kurt Russell.
Well, I mean, I didn't even get into Big Trouble in Little China, which is that deserves an episode unto itself.
He's on a tight wire the entire movie, and I swear to God, he is not even fucking flinch. He is not moved one way or the other off that tight wire. You can make that movie now with him in it, because I swear to God, he's not crossing. He gets close. There is some tight. He is a tight wire that he's walking, a tight rope. I mean, but whoo, that's the fucking man. But yeah, The Thing, dude, 100%, one of the best movies ever.
Yeah, I mean, the man's got, a good couple of classics under his belt. I think.
Shout out to Keith David. I see you.
Absolutely working hard in that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And wasn't Wilford Brimley in that?
Wilford Brimley wasn't.
I mean, the cast is awesome. But Keith
that's
David,
right, Wilford Brimley, y'all.
Second.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing I always liked about John Carpenter was like he was real about what he was doing. Like he understood the vision, he got the idea, and you could just see him get better as a director. Yes. And because of that, I love how he still infuses his movie, like you were saying, like his movies with the idea. Like the idea is always clear. And I feel like that's the best horror, like that horror that, that feeling that touches on something else intrinsic in all people, not trusting something that's different,
Absolutely.
Like terrified of being caught in a situation where you're just face to face with something mysterious and unstoppable. And that thing could be anything. So that's what I kind of liked about Michael Myers. Like, what is he? Is he a ghost? Is he a ninja? Like, how is it this 7-foot guy in these lumbering boots is able to just appear out of nowhere? But, that was all. And all of that's become, just like, cliches now about horror movies in general. But, when it was Michael Myers, I felt like it summed it up better than anything else. Like
part of my criteria for
you can call Michael Myers it because he is a thing.
Yeah. Well, part of my criteria, I would say to a certain extent of criteria to earning it like a true auteur status is when everybody steals from you, right? When it was sort of,
definitely.
When you did it and you were the first to do it, like you get that credit, right? It's like, all right, people want to be like you, watch that, and hopefully they find their own way into it. Miles Davis, I always like a quote he once said, is sometimes kind of hard to play like yourself. All right. There's a lot of that going on. But
if anything, I would say one of the biggest influence Carpenter had that you see throughout his movies is less to do with the antagonist and more to do with the fear of what the protagonist will have to do.
Absolutely.
Like if you look at all his main characters, right? They're always faced with this moment of crossing humanity that, I would argue most of us build our souls up to not want to do or get close to.
Right.
And boom, you're pulled into this moment where it's not even just about survival. It's literally about what decision am I going to take next that is either going to keep me alive or keep my humanity. And eventually you're going to have to pick one or the other.
Well,
which is true fear to Greg's point. I mean,
I think
that is soul shattering for most of us.
I think you hit the nail right on the head on that one, RaShaun. That was dead solid perfect right there. Well,
to the theme of our conversation, I literally just stole from what Greg just said.
There we go.
Greg said,
I don't mind.
Or let me say it a different way. He said from the right. I'll say it from the left.
Okay.
Package that shit.
Greg, with that, let's hear what you got to talk about in your auteur theory. Excuse me.
Well, yeah, because I wanted to touch on it in a couple because I love directors that have many classics in many genres. Stanley Kubrick, Ridley Scott, like they have sci-fi, horror, so on. And so I was like, all right, let me try to find somebody in that vein that I consider an auteur. And I wanted to do Guillermo Del Toro because I think that he, more than any of them, just created a style that very few people and probably nobody could really touch, to be honest with you. Like I would almost call it like a kind of, he doesn't like the word whimsical about his horror films, but I would definitely say horror wonder. Like it's a kind of horror film that makes you want to say, please look around that corner. Usually it's kind of pulling back, oh my God, what's around that corner? Here, you want to go further in. You want to go further in to the world in Pan's Labyrinth. Like you want to go further into the, underground world that he creates in Hellboy, and Devil's Backbone. Like you want to go further into those kinds of places. And another thing he does that I think is fascinating is he gives the creatures or monster or whatever it is in the movie a dignity. Like he gives it, like you almost, not to say end up rooting for it, but he gives it like just so much depth that all of a sudden you feel like you're not necessarily watching an enemy, but you really are just watching a character study, and one of those characters just happens to be something that's dead. For example, Mimic is different. When he made Mimic, that was, I mean, first of all, I don't think there's anything, if you've ever had a nightmare of giant bugs, I know you've never had that nightmare before because you've been able to sleep again. Giant bugs, terrifying idea. And that's why I had to see Mimic. Like it was just, and
That
what
movie
he
was awful.
in what he does in Mimic, those giant insects and some of the shots that he creates, that ends up kind of being his style. Like that Pan, that use of shadow, that mystery that he has around that these giant monsters. It really does do a better job of drawing you in, with not too much music and not too much blood, and you're terrified and you're curious. And I think that's the best kind of terror it is. Devil's Backbone, it showed how awful it would be to be a ghost, like how terrible and what it would mean emotionally to someone else who would try to understand what you are now as a ghost. It sounds honestly terrible. Now, the one I really want to talk about is Blade 2. Now, I remember that he did Blade 2. A lot of people don't remember. It's one of the examples of the sequel definitely being better than the original. But in Blade 2, he takes the idea, because in Blade the vampires are having these, like, I don't know, leather blood raves or whatever. Again, we don't kink shame, but like they're making it seem like some sort of all-night party being a vampire. So you bring in this other character that kind of reminds you, like, no, it's a curse. And the other character, yeah, right, like it is a curse having, being a vampire and being trapped in this kind of life. And so I love that you end up not only rooting for him because Luke Goss, who was the guy who played I forgot the name of the character, but the guy who played the villain in this, you end up kind of cheering for him, and not just because this guy's like a pretty badass action hero, actually, but because he reminds you that this is a curse that you don't want. You do not want to end up a vampire, and these other people, kind of challenge what he does and what Blade does and what the vampire is doing. I don't know. This is a superhero movie, a dark superhero movie. We were not ready to start having these conversations during these movies. And then he did Hellboy and Hellboy 2. A lot of people did not want to go near Hellboy. Like they didn't understand, was this a demon from New Jersey? Like, I don't understand what this guy
A Nazi
supposed to be. Demon. Right? Like, I don't understand what this guy is supposed to be, but it's like, again, horror wonder. Like there is this underground world that he gives this real depth to, and it's creepy. It never really throws a lot of blood in your face. It definitely makes you feel uncomfortable as you're watching it. Like you really don't feel like, everything just looks really gritty and tactile, and there's just something about it that never lets you be comfortable in your seat, but at the same time you want to find out more. You really do. So then, Pan's Labyrinth, which was probably the biggest classic. It was the horror of humanity, and then the horror of this other world and this girl who was trying to find magic, during fascism. And again, this situation of being in this world, and these characters are all given respect. Like, all of these characters are all shown to be, again, terrifying. They are scary, they are dangerous. But it's also, the one scene, well, actually no, it's not a real spoiler, but the one scene with the demon at the table, like, you understood what the rules of this situation were, and so you respected it. And so that's what made this dangerous, because this wasn't just an app, he's sitting right there, so this was not a magical, just an apparition that was going to pop up out of nowhere. But you were in this situation with this little girl, and you are feeling every bit of this tension. And even the fawn, it's not a beautiful fawn. Like, I don't know if you really want to call it beautiful, but it was beautiful in a way. But the point was, even though this world is scary, I mean, you would not be as courageous as this little girl in this spot, because the world does make you feel uncomfortable. But as the viewer, you want to know more, and that's the scary thing. Like, this really does feel like a dangerous adventure. So, I mean, we're going to skip over Pacific Rim, because I can't make the argument that is at all a horror film. I mean, it does have giant monsters in it, but this is just...
That's the TSG origin story. Pacific Rim 2.
I can't do it.
Kentucky Kaiju. Come on.
I can't do it.
That was literally our origin story.
But the shape...
supposed to see Black Panther.
We were trying. It was sold out.
Yeah. But I will definitely say that the Shape of Water, all right, fine. Maybe it was, the Little Mermaid before the Little Mermaid. I don't know. People had issues with it.
Reverse the sexes.
I love the parallel between the agent, Michael Shannon's character, and the parallel between, obviously the amphibious man. Let's just call, I think that's what they call him, the amphibious man, because in one place you had him, who was very intimidating, and he was, a man in the world who was, at least on the outside successful, but completely appalling. But the amphibious man, he was open. And I think that was the point that he was trying to make about that, that Guillermo Del Toro was trying to make about love in general. That love, these two people, one obviously is an underwater creature, and the other one is this deaf woman. But, the fact that it's about slowly but surely accepting and moving towards each other. And it never feels comfortable. That man is half fish. It absolutely never feels comfortable as you're watching it. But I mean, well, first of all, you're already here. And secondly, you do want to see how this is supposed to happen. And, is this even really a thing? And why? Okay, yeah. But that's exactly it. It's the kind of horror that makes you want the character to peek around the corner, to go further, to take that extra step that is going to be bad. But it's not in the same sense of a slasher film where you're like, oh yeah, get us to the gore. Here it's uncomfortable, but that's the nature of adventure. And I think that no one else has been able to do it like Guillermo Del Toro.
I
reverse the sexes. I would just point out, just like, and I'll give cracked.com the credit, but reverse the sexes of the main characters, and I guarantee you does not land for most people the same way. I love Guillermo Del Toro. I think he understands macabre in a way that Tim Robbins never really understood. I would actually sort of argue that what he and a lot of people try to do is very much the same, which is point out where the real monsters are. And I think that was the main point of the demon's speech in Pan's Labyrinth, and point out, like, at least where the monsters are here, where you're being told a different thing up there. Absolutely. Same thing with the Shape of Water. And also Pan's Labyrinth, if we want to talk about real horror, the real horror Guillermo Del Toro did to the country during that moment is make some people in this country read when they went to go see that movie. Because I guarantee you, that was fucking sweat right there. They were seeing all sorts of demons when they realized that it was not changing.
Subtitles? What the hell?
many-
The whole movie, so it was like,
So
just
many
hold on
words.
now, hold on. It's maybe the first 5 minutes. Give it some time. You know what? Let me back up. I do not mean to put an accent on that. I could have just said it the way I did. That was not directed at any source of people, but don't blame me. Blame the people you vote for.
It was sort of, everyone wanted that moment in the Hunt for Red October moment where they zoom in tight, where they're speaking Russian and then they start to speak English and they pull back.
You know they're waiting for that.
That's exactly,
exactly.
definitely.
Yep. You're not
American
going to see it.
subtitles, they're sitting here. It's like, wait, you're telling me he's a Spanish filmmaker making a film that's supposed to take place in Spain and everyone's speaking Spanish? What kind of a movie is this?
I mean, that's long-lasting horror, right? Because for those people, if you say, "Hey, let's go see a horror movie," they're like, "What? Who made it?" And they say Guillermo Del Toro, and next you know, it's nothing but fucking fear, sweat bullets, and all sorts of shivers and snot.
I wanted to say, Greg, I hadn't thought about it till you brought the subject up, but yeah, I would almost describe like he makes horror fairy tales. Like there's like you
could
say
that too,
way,
yeah.
That way that you, as you say, you are compelled to look around the corner, right? You're not yelling at the character in the, in Carpenter, that starts the trope of yelling at the screen, "Hey lady, get out of there," right? You know, there's that. This, you don't get that when you're watching.
You want to see more.
Yes.
Yeah, you definitely want to see, especially like I said in Hellboy 2, like there's like this underground world of monsters hiding and it looks genuinely scary, but you want to take a walk around. Like you want to know more about it.
No, it's interesting there. I do see also, I'll dip into your world a little bit. I always felt, particularly in Pan's Labyrinth, but as well Hellboy and Shape of Water. He pulls a little, I see a little Salvador Dali. I see some Picasso, to be quite honest. Like, like I like his artistic influences on the visual side of things. That, they take that kind of visual art that makes you feel a little uncomfortable, right? It's that surrealism. It's that question of,
I was going to say
reality.
surrealism. Yeah.
Yeah. It's bending reality just that little bit. Right. And then you're putting the characters in that situation, right? Where this is in front of you. Right. And there's no psychotropics involved. It's just that, putting you into that world. I think that his visual escape on that, as you say, it draws you in, right? And I really like your wanting to look around the corner, right? Because in that same way that you look, I mentioned those painters, you keep looking at those paintings, even if they do make you feel a little uncomfortable, because they're not realistic paintings, right? They're a little off kilter. They make you wonder what's going on, right? And they make you go with that. So they give you this feeling of discomfort. I think, it's a really good point to make. And, now I want to go rewatch Pan's Labyrinth, quite honestly, after what you're talking about.
And honestly, like I said, you didn't expect to be having that conversation in Blade 2 or in Hellboy 2, but and it's kind of funny that it's Luke Goss playing, both villains, but he was pretty badass. Like, I don't know why he didn't, he wasn't in more action films, but how he, creates these characters that you're surprised at how much depth they have. And you're just completely taken by them. Like, I would watch a movie about each of those characters. Like, if that sequel just centered on either one of those villains, I'd watch the shit out of those movies.
Well, that's good filmmaking, right? If you you can do that, and if you want to go down those little side venues, to tie it all back together. Second time, I'm going to give a shout out to my man Brian Walsh out there in California.
It's Brian Walsh Day.
It is, man. I got to tell him that
crushing it, Walshy,
crushing it, because he worked on the concepts for the vampires in Blade 2. I remember him telling me about that when he was working on it. And, of course, all the vampire eating vampires, which is, again, I don't know how much influence Del Toro had on this script, but even that, right? You like the monsters eating the monsters, and the questions that the lines they're in, and the alliances that get redrawn. Even in that, it's a Marvel property, right? But it's an interesting idea, right? It's like, well, wait a second.
Well, like I said, the whole idea that it was becoming, because it kind of became a thing. Being a vampire is like chic. And then occasionally you have to be inconvenienced by having to eat people. But I love the parallel of this other creature that gets created to kill Blade, but reminds you that, one, it is a curse, and two, you get to weigh it against these other posh vampires, and which one is actually more interesting. He is much more interesting. The fab vampires, like, they weren't as compelling.
I think you're right, and I think the good news is for all of us, we didn't get to find out the actual skin color of his Little Mermaid character, so the world was able to hold its shit together for another week, and God forbid if the mermaid had played the flute. My God. But hey, RaShaun, 3 of clubs. How you feeling over there, man?
It is hilarious how much people lost their shit about a woman playing some old cross-dresser's crystal flute. So
I still don't understand that whole story. I'm gonna be honest.
I
don't understand.
She played a flute, Gregory.
She played a flute.
She played a flute, and she wore, maybe her clothing was a bit revealing, and she's a big woman too, who talks about being a big woman.
I'm just saying, hey, look, I'm just saying the founding fathers wore wigs and makeup. So you can tell me the difference if you want to. I'm just gonna say one was wearing a suit, the other one's wearing not a suit.
We may not kink shame, but I'm not gonna allow that.
It's not even about kink shaming.
I'm not gonna allow that. I'm not gonna allow that.
I don't know what
CRT
kind
on
of
my show. Okay.
No, it really isn't. It really isn't. It's about people losing their shit about one thing versus the other. When in reality, if you actually just call it right down the line and be honest about what you're looking at and what you're doing, you actually end up coming to a better situation and better understanding, which is, i.e., the truth. This is kind of what we're talking about right now, in the sense of when we're talking about director Attar, excuse me, these guys, I love when they go fucking brainiac on me and shit. You're like, oh my God, you nerds. But anyway, when we're talking about just overall director style being represented and connected through,
gotta bring a fancy word for this shit. What the hell, man?
I mean,
come on.
God damn it, right? With those 10-cent words.
I grew up in a bilingual household. It's not a fancy word.
RaShaun, yeah, well, there's that. And in my case, $100,000 for a film degree. Okay.
Woohoo!
Think about that shit. I got to get something out of it.
Okay. No, that's our actual origin story, RaShaun. Josh needed something to do with his degree. He was like,
I would argue that
bring these motherfuckers in.
I would argue that's how we all ended up at the same building and location for several years, is we all were trying to figure out what the hell to do with our degrees that we currently weren't using in that moment and matter. So, some of us still to that point. But really what we're also talking about, and I'm not sure if we're being completely honest about it, is when we first, let's separate a few different things. And one quick side note, I just shat all over Mimic, and objectively, it wasn't a great movie. However, I also need to be fair. We were spoiled all sorts of to hell during the 90s when it came to movies. There are so many different movies that we fucking shat on, and rightfully so, because in the competition that I was in, it wasn't always that great. But a lot of those movies would crush it right now. If Mimic came out right now, it would absolutely just run away for at least a couple of weeks, especially if it was like on
probably
something like that.
Yeah.
But it came out during a time where we were just shitting on so many different movies that actually were pretty damn good. They were just up against so much competition. It's not even fair. It's almost like the movie industry became literally the mirror of the NBA, where like there were so many different players that had legendary years, legendary careers, legendary this and that, but they weren't Jordan. So it just got to the point where like literally we're like, all right, look, we'll give you the MVP because we're sick of giving it to Jordan, but let's be clear. you weren't better than Jordan. Like that's kind of what the 90s were.
That's fair. That's fair.
When it came to movies. A lot of movies that we talked about came up during that time, but also what I was moving towards is the second problem, which is really what plagues genres like horror movies. And the way I look at it is it basically has to be like small talk. It better be really topical or really, really fucking interesting. And when I break that down, when you think about all the movies that people say are scary to them, really what you have to do is you have to look at the lens of their world during that time and why it's scary. We have talked about in multiple different episodes here on TSG how there have been movies that Josh has been super scared of, movies that Greg has been super scared of, but don't mean shit to me. Then I can literally turn around and do the exact same thing. Like, for example, the movie that is the scariest to me, the movie that absolutely will make me just do dumb shit. Like I literally spent a summer washing my face one side at a time because I was that goddamn scared, was arachnophobia. Why? Because to me, the scariest thing is something that could actually happen. And then you can't tell me if you actually know our custom system and how we actually inspect things that are coming in and out of our ports. You don't want to go down that. You want to get scared? You start actually looking at how we look at crates coming in and out. And you'll realize we ain't looking. So it ain't that fucking hard for some invasive species to come in here and just absolutely run roughshod over us. And on top of that, if you add in the leadership that we've kind of had, and look, I'm gonna be happy for both sides now. The leadership we basically have for the last 50 years has been a steady downfall of understanding what kind of structural support we had if we had an invasive species come in. This is a shit that a 12-year-old had to think about when he went to go see Arachnophobia. Again, during the 90s when we're at the fucking peak of cinema. I can't believe how goddamn good the 90s were. The more I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, we shit on Con Air. I'll tell you right now, Con Air would fucking run it right now. Anyway, just moving on, right? So horror movies need to be like small talk. It's either topical, so topical will make it scary for that time. People watched it in the 40s. They watched something that was super scary. I just looked at a list of the top 10 horror movie directors, and a lot of them, some of them, they kicked out movies in the 60s. You watch that shit right now, there's no way in the world you're going to get scared. I don't care who you are. You will not get scared. We see scarier things on our commercials than what we see during those movies. But during that time, if you were coming up during that time, you didn't have anything really against it. The competition was that. It's also, if I want to use another sports analogy, no different in the reason why a lot of people have to look at Baseball Hall of Fame a lot differently, and why you have to make a lot of different arguments is you can't necessarily say someone like Babe Ruth is the best if you held out literally all other competition that wasn't white male. Well, same thing with some of these horror movies. There weren't a lot of competition. So there's a reason why Dracula from 1959 is some of the scariest things some people have ever seen right now. You talk to some individuals, mostly people probably in their 70s, they will probably bring that up. Josh brought up Exorcist. I got to tell you, I've seen Exorcist 17 different ways. There's no way I've ever been scared, even when I was a kid. But I understand where Josh is coming from. I understand where his dad's coming from. There are movies that my dad talked about that were scary.
Can I do a Beetlejuice shout out?
Please.
I've seen The Exorcist 117 times. And it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. That's all I
So that's the topical part. Or it needs to be really interesting. And there's definitely movies that we've talked about that will stand the tides of time. One being one that we've already talked about, The Thing. So I get that. But also we need to understand that in order for these Attar styles to be presented, what we're also saying is something we've also talked about on TSG. If we're going to be honest about it, we have to call it out. Trope isn't always dope. And that's literally what we're really talking about. These individuals have, for a lot of different reasons, if you start looking at the list of these directors, they are on there because what they did really came down to a lack of maybe ability, creativity, courage, or resources. You start looking at a lot of what they did, they follow a theme. I'm not sure it's because it's their style. It may have been because they literally could not have done anything else or better or wanted to. Some of the people that we talked about, I would argue one of the reasons why they're memorable to us and the reason why they can move out of the topical range and more into the really interesting range is because they actually have courage. They're willing to take some of the stuff that they've been successful on and they push it to a different direction. It may be very similar. They may be stumbling on their own tropes that maybe they've created, or they're simply following along. Wes Craven was very big on pointing out that a lot of what he was doing, he was following. He was just putting his stamp on it. And I agree that Wes Craven is kind of the voice that people need to pay attention to if they want to get into the genre. Is the reason why I love Jordan Peele so much is he points out things like that and he imbues it into his style and he kind of creates a different way. One, I would actually point out that the funny reason why it kind of lands on some certain people of this country and not always other people, and the reason why there's a lot of confusion is because, again, topical. He's pointing out some fears that you may have if you share a hue of his versus some of the things that become blinding to others, which heighten the fear. If you know you're in a situation, we want to talk about siege. Imagine being 11% of the population and constantly thinking, what happens if 30% decides to get pissed off and decides to go into a Tulsa moment? I got to tell you, I have yet to see a movie that will match that type of fear that will be created. That is kind of how you move into the topical things. Same thing with Romero when he went to the zombies. He moved into a topical other that made it stick. But because he was courageous and he was willing to work with his resources in the best way possible, which leads to the ability, something I did point out, he was able to make it also super interesting, which is the reason why it becomes memorable and why I totally understand why the style will stick and become, if anything, its own trope. So then it moves on to other ways to try to look at it as well. So we can also look at it in the sense of, I can have a little fun with this subject. You think that I haven't been having fun so far? I got to tell you, I can go even further. Now, I know I'm ripping it from several different people, but we can go in the sense of maybe we look at horror in a different way. We're looking at horror in a way that it's just throwing it right at your face. But I argue horror is things that you're not suspecting, things that you can't account for, things that you do not understand how you're going to move forward with. We have so much things built into our life that by the time you're an adult, there's actually, let's be honest, very few things that are going to scare you other than the things that are probably within your real life. So maybe we look at different genres in different directions. Like I could point out that the Pixar timeline is kind of fucking scary. In 2004, The Incredibles, yeah, they saved the world, but maybe they lose their shit, go the boys route, and absolutely fucking destroy the world. Destroy the world, absolutely wipe out humanity damn near to its core, leaving it to 2006 where it's just animatronic cars running around, racing each other because they got nothing fucking better to do, and all they're trying to do is replicate what the world was before everything was lost. So they have human personas. They don't know why. They're cars. But still, they're just going around until finally 2008, robots are like, look, we give up. The world's gone. We'll just launch whatever we have left into space as far as humans, but we're just going to go ahead and take over. And then when you start looking at Pixar after that, it kind of actually starts making sense. It's just a world of robots. That's scary because what I just told you is that humans basically got wiped the fuck out. Or horror goes into a different direction. And this is another way directors make their style. And I argue it's not that good. And that's it's the bad directors. It's the ones who are just bad at what they do. They get a lot of credit, but they're fucking bad. Rob Zombie, I'm looking at you. I know I just picked a big ass fight, but I'm all right with that because you are the goddamn example of good idea, shitty fucking plot. You don't even fucking want to pull things through. The best thing you got are writing credits when you're a writer on someone else's shit. I know you're on 1994 Fear Street. That shit was fire. I'm with you on that. Why couldn't you do that for the Halloween remake? You fucking had a good idea and you fucking dropped the ball left and right. We bought Ghosts of Mars. There was a shitload of world building that you could have built into that. But no, the best you got is fucking zombies in goddamn space throwing fucking buzzsaws at people. Are you shitting me, man? Do you just give up halfway through? Are you the J.J. Abrams of just fucking metal horror? Is that what you are? Like Grindhouse? You literally had an idea of a woman with a goddamn gun for her leg, and then you just walked away. You just like, yeah, I'm done. This is all I have. Yeah, I don't know what to do with you, man. You need to fucking stop. So if there's any modern director that has a style, the Attar, the new one, is Rob Zombie. It's the guy who comes up with a good fucking idea and then just lets it go after that.
Just takes it. He half-asses it. Is what you're saying.
It's scary to him to actually finish the fucking thought.
Gonna give you a quick little shout out to now a couple weeks ago to our WWEF wrestling episode. We are now going to have Vin Diesel and Rob Zombie taking on RaShaun in the steel cage. That's what's
pretty
happening.
Sure I picked an indirect fight with your sister too, so I'm really calling it out.
In the ever-growing list that's going on, of TSG enemies that RaShaun is determined to take on and build.
Right?
So I'm
RaShaun
impressed.
versus the world.
RaShaun is definitely, picking fights.
Nothing
man.
new.
He's out there picking fights. Well, I really loved I loved listening to what you had to say. And I think, you touched on Jordan Peele, right? Who, as of recent, is
An up and coming master.
Up and coming master himself. Someone actually called him a master of horror, or like the best horror director. And he actually referenced John. He said, I can't, he said, thank you. That's very kind, but I'm not going to do that to, like we're not talking about John Carpenter is what he says. So there you go. Influence and everything else. But you nail so much about what makes him so interesting, right? It comes from his comedy, which I think we try and engage in a little here, right? That he points out, he on that show for so many years, points out what might be funny to you, as you say, if you're coming from a different hue in society, right? But he then manages to, as you say, flip that around to what's scary, right? Which often, that comedy and that fear, they're buttressed up against one another, right? I think of the skit they did on their show when they were up against the shape-shifting aliens and they're trying to figure out who's who. And they come across the white guy, and he's like, "Would you mind if I dated your daughter?" And the guy's like, "I'd be fine with that." And they just cut him down right in the street. So it's that overlap, which I wouldn't have necessarily assumed is there, but man, thank God it is there, because there's been some really good movies. I haven't seen Nope yet, but I do want to. I
haven't either. I definitely want to see it. Maybe we set up a TSG date.
That would be awesome.
It's real life experience that happened real fast. Family event directly after high school. One of my best friends was with me. He's white, and he looked up, and I know he wasn't scared, but he looked up. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm the only white person in here." And I deadpan, without even hesitation, looked at him and said, "Welcome to my world."
Hey.
he's like, yeah. I'm like, just keep thinking it. Keep thinking it. Well, you worried about someone getting mad? You worried about someone maybe picking on you? You worried about maybe not having a lot of resources in here? Yeah. That literally every day.
Somebody makes a white joke, you're gonna have to pretend it's funny.
Yeah,
because you're outnumbered. You're fucking outnumbered, and you know it.
RaShaun,
they call you AA Ron, just go with it.
AA Ron.
You done messed up, AA Ron. Did you hand him a pair of bootstraps? That would have been the best. If you could have actually handed the man a pair of bootstraps and told him to go do it.
Nah, I mean, he's one of my best friends for a reason. So once I said it to him like that, the next thing I was worried about, I was like, all right, so don't let that go completely on the other side where you create the horror by saying something really fucking stupid. That you might be able to get away with me, or I get to explain it to you. I can't promise that from my cousins, my uncles, and people I don't even know who are in here right now. So let's go to the complete other side where now you got no fear, which will create some fear.
We've been trading on this with the spray bottle all this time.
This is how a comedy movie goes to a horror movie. This is how Sam Raimi kicks in real fast.
Well, that is
ain't showing up for you. So neither is Ash.
I love it. Well, I think we fulfilled our mission statement today in the TSG mission statement, taking it all the way from horror auteurs to real life horror, sitting there being the only white guy in the theater. That is tying that shit together. That is absolutely bringing it home.
Sorry, another topical thing. So you guys were talking earlier when we first started recording, may not even make the recording, so this is going to sound really weird, but the Patriots game. And all I could think watching the Patriots game is the scene during Any Given Sunday where they get to Willie Beeman because the backup gets hurt within 5 minutes. And they're like, wait, Beeman? And like, what the fuck? Jared Beane's hurt? Would he fall off the bench? And when I'm thinking it now, I'm thinking, yeah, you want to talk about horror? I saw that movie in Nashville. There was like maybe 7 white people who decided to take a chance and went to go see that movie in 100 Oaks. Anyone who's from Nashville knows exactly what I'm about to say. 100 Oaks at 10 p.m. They went to go see it. I'll tell you right now, you want to talk about some scared people. Holy shit. They could not. The credits were even close to being up before that door was kicked open. They were fucking running out of there. I mean, it was...
Roll the windows up, kids. Lock the doors. Roll the windows up. Lock the doors.
Yeah.
If you can think of every stereotype, I hate to say it because stereotypes exist. if you can think of every stereotype, it was happening in that theater. And holy shit, the only people that are scared were people who definitely shared maybe your complexion, not mine.
maybe you did. All right, over here. Okay.
I heard so many times, are they gonna fight? I'm like, why do you think that?
Yeah.
Well,
no, if a fight happens, a fight happens. You don't have to worry about if it's gonna.
Well, I've got an activity that won't scare you and won't make you feel like the only white or black person in the room. That is going over to Apple Podcasts and rating and reviewing us. I'm just saying that shouldn't give you that feeling. If it does, I need you to reach out to us on doyouevensteambro@gmail.com and tell me how the hell that happened, because really, I thought
Gymkhana, because that was some martial arts hidden in some gymnastics brilliance.
Dude, that was $100,000 worth of film education going right at you.
Baby.
So you made Gymkhana. Oh, okay.
You know,
cool.
And they still come and ask me for money, which is amazing. And I say, what did you do with the money I gave you? I'm stealing that.
I made Gymkhana.
Yes, some Gymkhana. I'm stealing that from John Mulaney.
Starred in it.
But yes, by all means, head on over, rate and review us. Follow us on the socials. We got the Steam Gentleman on Facebook. We got Do You Even Steam Bro on Instagram. And we're on TikTok, but do we really TikTok? I mean, we're Gen Xers. We're trying, people. We're so trying. Same with Twitter.
We're actually not trying that hard.
Not really that hard, but Twitter's there. But
we need Elon to TikTok. We can TikTok if we need to TikTok.
Elon Musk's gonna fuck all that up.
It's there.
It's
I mean, we could TikTok if we need to TikTok.
It's a thing. It's a thing, But if you rate and review us, we can get more people to help us do that. We can actually hire these people on. We can really, get this business off the ground and just, keep bringing that steam to you week after week. And as we head out on into the rest of our day, Starchild, what you got? What's your parting thought for the day?
Parting thought, the only horror we have to look forward to is how shit-tastic all of our New England teams are going to be.
Oh,
so I'm going to hold dear to the survivor girl, the Boston Celtics.
Yeah. No, that ain't no survivor. That ain't no virgin survivor girl. That's all I'm saying.
The rest of them are dead, so we're gonna have to. That's our only survival girl,
I guess.
If your beloved Boston sports teams, because I'm gonna go ahead and put myself aside, were any movie characters, it's probably it's Justin Long in Jeepers Creepers. And if anyone's never seen that movie, let me go ahead and say, don't watch it for him. Don't do it.
I do like the image of the Boston Celtics somehow being the virginal survivor girl.
They're the survivor girls.
Like I said,
I don't know how we landed there.
Jeepers Creepers.
Because I'm just saying they ain't really that's more like the behind the mask scene. RaShaun, 3 of clubs. What's your parting thought for the day?
Don't have one. I literally just went blank as soon as you asked me, which is sort of the theme. I think people are coming to sadly expect that from me. So hey, let's just get through this week, get to next Monday so we can do some more recording, and hopefully Disney can buy us. And
love it.
I said the quiet part out loud.
This is authentic, people. This is real. This is what's happening. Okay. We're not fake here. We're authentic. We are ourselves. All right. If this were some kind of blog, I'd have to, have some picture of me with my legs in the tub, which you really don't want to see. That's okay. Well, yeah, I don't,
I'm about to put a picture of C. Thomas Howell from Soul Man up and say,
oh shit, man. Easy now.
Yeah.
Easy. Whoa.
Don't nobody want that back. Nobody. Nobody.
I'm more
wants
Bill
that
Burr
back.
here. Okay. I'm more Bill Burr. I know where the line is and can play around the line, but I'm not going to step over it.
That would make a great horror movie. Making someone who's a generally nice person, doesn't matter, just a well-balanced, nice person, and making them remake Soul Man. It's like, no, you will do blackface. I can't do it. My soul won't let me.
Hell no.
Do it.
I'll never make another movie again. No, I'm not doing it.
It's like when Leo couldn't say the N-word on Django, and Sam's like, you better say it. That I can't smack.
That might be one of the that would probably be a true really horrific situation, being stuck,
because there's some generally nice people out there, some really fucking nice people just trying to live their life, and I imagine that being like one of the worst days of their life.
That would be tough. Having Samuel L. Jackson telling you you're gonna drop that, you're gonna drop that word, you're gonna say it. He's hard to say no to. Let's just
or having the remake Soul Man. It's like, look, the plot is garbage. Forget about the blackface. This is horrible. I mean, Raydon Chung is in the same role. How is this happening?
How are we here?
Yeah, and plus, I mean, I understand where he's coming from. Like, I was feeling for Leo in that spot, because you will be that guy. Yeah, I know. You're gonna try to say Samuel L. Jackson, the debatable king of all black people, gave you permission to say it, so you could
Morgan
totally say it. But man, don't.
Well, I'll go with that. I'll leave.
If anything, we have a Roman triumvirate when it comes to the men's side, not women. Men's side, it's Morgan, Sam, and Denzel.
Love it.
I probably butchered that. I'm sorry.
However he thinks he pronounces his name.
Yes.
I will apologize to him. Sorry, Mr. Washington.
That's a fair enough thing. All right. Well, until then, until we next meet and we converge on the steam tunnels, continuing on in our murder month, this is Josh the Birdman saying, keep that heat up and keep your head of steam on.
Because Denzel will smack the bitch.
Denzel.